So to make the mayonnaise, it's very simple. All you need is just a few ingredients. I've got 2 egg yolks here. I've got some mustard. I've got in this cup here white wine vinegar. I've got some freshly squeezed lemon juice there. Here is 250 ml of sunflower oil and some freshly milled pepper and salt there. Now, a word about the oil. You do need a flavourless oil such as peanut or groundnut oil. Olive oil is a bit too harsh for mayonnaise, so I wouldn't be using that one. And a word of caution, this must be at room temperature. So if you keep your eggs in the fridge, then make sure that they are out of the fridge at least an hour before you use them. So to make this mayonnaise, we're going to be using the food processor, but we're not going to be using the big bowl. For the 2 egg method, which is this, then the blades would not be reaching the ingredients enough. We need something smaller. So what I'm going to do is just use this smaller bowl on the inside here. And this is a much smaller bowl. And as you can see from the inside, everything is on a much reduced diameter. So these blades will be small enough to take the 2 egg yolks. If you want to make the whole egg method of mayonnaise, which is using a whole egg, then what you would do is you would be able to use the bigger bowl here and the bigger blade. But for this particular method, which is the 2 egg yolk method, you do need the smaller blade and the smaller bowl to make it successfully. This method of making mayonnaise using 2 egg yolks produces a much thicker and a much more solid mayonnaise than using 1 whole egg. So I'm going to start off by putting in the 2 egg yolks into the smaller bowl and make sure that you scrape all of the yolk in if it's broken off the plate there. And then what I'm going to do is add just a teaspoonful of the mustard. So just a teaspoonful of the mustard, not a heaped teaspoon because otherwise it'll be too harsh. And that's the amount you need. You do need some mustard in there because this helps to blend the egg yolks. So in that goes. And I'm just going to make sure that everything gets scraped off. And once that's on, once that's in the bowl, we'll put the lid on and then we'll switch on and we'll just get that mixed round. So that's all you need for that. You don't need to mix that for too long, about 15 seconds or so, just to blend those ingredients. Now, the next thing is that we need to drizzle the oil in, and we need to drizzle it in a very slow, steady stream. And I'm going to be pouring it in through this feeder here. You can take this out and actually pour it in through the main feeder if you want to, but either one will work just as well. So that will go now, and if the slower you pour it in, the better the mayonnaise. If you pour it in too quickly, it will curdle and it will split. The other reason why that you need your eggs to be at room temperature is also to prevent the mixture from curdling. If your mayonnaise does curdle, then it's not a disaster. What you just need to do is start with 1 fresh egg yolk and then re-blend the curdled mixture to it. If your mixture curdles, add it to a fresh egg yolk. That's at room temperature and it will all come back together again. So anyway, off we go, and I'm going to put half of the oil in. So this is half of the oil that's gone in now, and I'm going to show you what it looks like. I'll just let that continue for a bit longer and then I'll switch it off and I'll show you what it looks like. So this is half of the oil that's gone in, and as you can see, it's very thick, and it's now what we need to do is add the white wine vinegar, because this is too thick at the moment and we need to actually put the rest of the oil in. If we continued like that, then we wouldn't be able to get the oil in, and that's what the vinegar does. It cuts it down and it actually makes it easier to get the rest of the oil in. And at this point, I'm just going to scrape down the sides of this bowl here, just to make sure that everything is well incorporated. And we'll add the vinegar. And what you need is just over a teaspoon. So that's this cup here. I'm going to put in 1 teaspoon and 1/4, like that. And then we'll continue blending this, and then what you'll see is that the mayonnaise will actually lighten right up. And there, as you can see, It's lightened right up and we can continue adding the oil. This time you can be a bit bolder and you can add the oil in a much thicker stream. Because you've got the acid in there, the acid will prevent the mayonnaise from curdling. So that's the last of the oil that's gone in. Just let that run. And we'll just switch off. And we're going to have a look at this now. And as you can see, everything is amalgamated and blended together. But what we need to do is add the last of the ingredients, and that is the lemon juice and the salt and the pepper. So for the lemon juice, I'm going to put in 1.5 teaspoons. So that's 1.5. You can use the measuring spoons if you want to, but I don't bother. And I'm going to put in a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper here. I quite like the black pepper. I don't mind the black speckles in the mayonnaise. Some people do, and they just want to use white. And a little bit of salt. And what I'm going to do is just blend this again. I'm going to give it one final scrape down and give it one final burst. And that's your mayonnaise. It's very simple and it's very easy. So here is the finished product. What I'm going to do is just take off this blade because they can be quite vicious, and we'll just scrape it off there. And what we're going to do is now just pot that. So obviously before you finish this, you need to taste it and see if you want any more salt and pepper in there. And now what I'm going to do is just move all of this. As you can see, this is the consistency. This is how a proper mayonnaise should be. It should wobble on the spatula, on your spoon. It should not pour. One of the things that I think is really disgusting is that shop bought mayonnaise you get, especially those ones in little packets. A proper homemade mayonnaise should sit up proudly on the spoon like that. And if you find that's too thick, then what you can do is just put an extra ½ teaspoon of the white wine vinegar in there. But that's how you make a proper homemade mayonnaise, and this is exactly how it should be. And what will happen is that you can put this in the fridge and it will last up to a week.